Imagine you constructed a regression model and it is predicting that your new product is going to be a big hit. We are talking about millions of dollars on the line. But what if that model is just wrong? How do you know if you are looking at a genius insight or just a really dangerous guess? That is exactly the question we need to answer. And the answer actually comes down to a set of rules that we call the assumptions of the classical linear regression model. In this video, we will understand a few of the basic assumptions that any good, reliable linear regression model has to follow. If all the assumptions are valid, your results are solid. But if it fails, those predictions could be seriously misleading. This is the most fundamental rule of all. Regression assumes that the relationship you are looking at is linear. In other words, you can draw a straight line through it. But how do we know a straight line is the right way to think about it? Well, in the real world, analysts have a three-step process for this. First, they check the existing theory. Then, they actually look at the data by making a scatter plot. And finally, for the ultimate check, they look at something called residual plots. It is just a chart of the model's mistakes. If those mistakes look totally random, then the straight line assumption is probably a good one. To understand this clearly, let us go through each of these three steps one by one. Take economics for instance. There is a classic relationship between how much money people make, that is their income, and how much they spend. We all know that as income goes up, spending goes up. For most people in a normal range, that relationship looks like a straight line. And the theory gives us a green light to try a linear model. Next, we have to look at the actual data. Consider this table. Plotting these points shows a scatter plot that is almost linear. That is a huge clue that a linear model is probably a great idea here. Even in multiple regression, we often check the relationship between two variables, such as if we want to construct a model for sales, the independent variables may be advertising, price, or income. So we check the relationship between sales versus advertising, sales versus price, and sales versus income. These pairwise plots will give you a rough idea. So let us say we are happy with the linearity assumption and we have built a linear model. But we are not done. The next important phase is to look at its mistakes. Statisticians call them errors or residuals. Errors or residuals are just about how the model gets things wrong. A good, trustworthy model makes mistakes in a very particular, predictable way. A good model's mistakes have to be random and unbiased. Let us take a simple example of a simple linear regression model between sales and advertising. This table shows the actual sales, that is the data collected before running the regression. Now, how did we obtain the predicted sales? When we run the regression, our software gives the predicted model. Using the predicted model, we find the predicted values of y for each value of x. We know that by definition, error is the difference between the actual sales and the predicted sales. So we have this column of errors here for our model. Here, the assumption or rule says that if we add all the prediction errors together, the average error should be 0. For our example, when we add all the errors, we get a mean of 0. This means the model is unbiased. But if the model always predicts too high, something is wrong with the model. So regression assumes that positive and negative errors cancel out on average. The next important assumption is also on the error checklist and is something called no autocorrelation. The idea behind this assumption of no autocorrelation is very simple. It is just asking, are the model's mistakes talking to each other? For example, does yesterday's mistake have some kind of influence on today's mistake? If the answer is yes, you have got a problem. Mathematically, no autocorrelation is represented as correlation ut minus 1 equal to 0. Remember here that autocorrelation is studying the correlation between different values of the same variable, which in a regression model is the relationship between different values of the error term. Consider this example. Suppose we want to study the monthly factory production. Production usually depends on factors like demand, number of workers, or machine hours. So we write a regression model as shown in the slide. The error term ut represents all other factors affecting production that are not included in the model, such as machine breakdown, electricity outage, unexpected worker absence, or transportation delays, for example. These are the disturbances. Now consider this table. Error or ut is equal to actual value minus predicted value. Notice something? The errors keep increasing every month. This suggests the errors are not independent, and there is a pattern in the errors. Such patterns indicate that the model is missing some important information. This assumption becomes especially important in time series data like GDP, stock prices, monthly sales, and so on. Suppose there was a machine problem in January that reduced production. If it is not fixed immediately, February will also be affected. That means the error from January carries into February. So the errors become correlated over time. The key idea is that the errors should not follow any pattern over time. For example, if errors were 150, minus 80, 60, minus 40, 20, and so on, then we can say there is no autocorrelation because we do not see any pattern here. Homoscedasticity is the next assumption, and it means that the model's accuracy should be consistent. In simple terms, when the spread of data stays constant, we have homoscedasticity. And when the spread of data increases or decreases systematically, we have heteroscedasticity. Mathematically, homoscedasticity is represented as variance of ut square is equal to sigma square, which is a constant. Let us understand this concept with a simple example. Imagine we study income and spending, but the variability in spending is roughly similar across all income levels. Here, spending increases with income, but variation around the trend is small and consistent. This represents homoscedasticity. Now consider another data set. Here we see that for low-income families, most of their income goes into basic necessities like food, rent, electricity, and transport. Because these expenses are essential, their spending tends to fall within a very normal range. For example, many low-income households may spend between Rs 8,000 and 10,000 per month. Their spending patterns are quite predictable. But when we look at high-income households, the situation changes. Once the basic needs are satisfied, people have many choices. Some may spend heavily on travel, luxury goods, dining out, or entertainment. Others may choose to save or invest instead. So, two families earning the same high income might have very different spending patterns. One family might spend Rs 50,000 while another might spend 2 lakhs. This means the variation in spending becomes much larger at higher income levels. In econometrics, when the variance of the errors increase with the level of income, we say the data suffers from heteroscedasticity. Therefore, when the variation in income and spending data is too large, the regression model may fail to capture the true relationship and can lead to misleading conclusions. Now, this is an important check for your model. we have to look at the inputs we are actually putting into the model. By inputs, I mean the independent variables that we have selected for our model. Are any of them redundant? Or simply saying, have we included a variable that is not necessary for our study? The assumption that regression makes is that there is no multicollinearity. However, this problem does not arise in simple regression because we have only one predictor, but it becomes important in a multiple regression model. It is what happens when two or more of your inputs are so closely related that they are basically telling the model the same thing. It is like having two people shouting the same instruction. This kind of redundancy just confuses the model. It cannot figure out which input is actually important, and that makes the whole thing unreliable. Let us use a really simple example to make this crystal clear. Say you are trying to predict sales. So you feed your model two inputs: advertising expenditure, that is how much you spent, and advertising budget, that is how much you plan to spend. Now, those two things are going to be almost identical, right? If the budget goes up, spending goes up. Putting both of them in the model is just redundant. And here you have got multicollinearity. One simple way to detect multicollinearity is by using a correlation matrix. If two independent variables have very high correlation, usually above 0.8 or 0.9, it may indicate a multicollinearity problem. To understand correlation and how to read a correlation matrix, you can refer to the correlation video. In econometrics, saying the model should be correctly specified means that the regression model must include the right variables, the correct functional form, and the correct relationship between them. If the model is not correctly specified, the estimates from ordinary least squares may become biased or misleading. A correctly specified model means relevant variables are included, irrelevant variables are not included, and the relationship is written in the correct form, such as linear, log linear, quadratic, and so on. If these conditions are not met, the model becomes misspecified. Suppose a retailer wants to understand what affects sales. A reasonable model might be sales equal to beta naught plus beta 1 into price plus beta 2 into advertising plus beta 3 into store size plus U. This makes sense because price affects sales, advertising attracts customers, and store size affects how many products can be displayed. So this model is properly specified. Now imagine the manager estimates sales as a function of price alone. Here advertising and store size are missing. This creates omitted variable bias because the effect of advertising may wrongly appear in the price coefficient. The model may incorrectly conclude that price has a huge effect on sales, when actually advertising was responsible. So, if important variables are missing, or if we include irrelevant variables, the regression results can become misleading. In other words, a regression model works well only when we describe the real-world relationship correctly. When all these assumptions hold true, regression produces what statisticians call BLUE. That means Best Linear Unbiased Estimates. In simple language, your predictions become trustworthy for real business decisions. It means that your model is as accurate and as reliable as it can possibly be. It means you can actually trust its predictions. You can take that output and make those big high-stakes decisions we talked about at the very beginning with confidence. So I will leave you with this. The next time someone shows you a forecast or a prediction from some fancy model, ask these questions.